And
just write it all down.
you wrote some questions down as well, did you?
I've got a few questions and I've got a few things I've been reading as well, but
Yeah.
my main thing, as I've been, again, pontificating in my head today,
Yeah.
what's going on? Are we all, like, I don't mean England, the whole world, are we just all self-harming?
Has the world become a borderline? Like that piece of research called Russia has borderline personality disorder.
I know, but...
Are we self-harming?
Yeah, I was thinking about world leaders and I thought, oh, we'll do a little chat about world leaders and stuff. And then every time you Google anything, I'm just thinking, it doesn't make any sense because, as I understand it, there is a mass consensus amongst scientists that global warming is a thing and it's going to kill us.
Right.
We don't seem to be voting in the people that want to save us.
I think, are we self-harming as a species is a valid question to ask. I think, like, at this moment, there is an effort to sort of, this is just my stupid opinion, there is an effort to kind of upgrade the consciousness. There's an effort to sort of awaken, but not spiritually, maybe awaken politically, maybe awaken economically, maybe awaken to ourselves and start cleaning up the backyard. And I do think any kind of an awakening is always going to be painful. And there is a bit of self-beating going on. There is a bit of self-flagellation and self-destructiveness that's going on.
So we are self-destructing, you think?
Well, I think
don't know.
self-harming. So you said self-harm, and I think that was probably a better word. No, I don't think we're trying to self-destruct, but I think that, so there's like the individual consciousness of human being A, and then there's the group consciousness of human beings in a certain place, and then I think there's the group consciousness just at a planetary level. And I think we are aware that this cannot continue.
Yeah.
Right, so, and I suspect, in a slightly metaphysical way, in a slightly woo-woo way, that we are aware that there are too many rats inside of this particular box. And you can't have this many rats inside the box. The population is exploding globally.
Yeah.
And we still have the same planet and the same resources. And all that is happening is that it seems, our capacity to pollute and to damage the environment in which we live is growing.
So you're talking about a mass consciousness.
Yeah. It's a little bit mystical, that.
No, I quite like the idea of it, but is there a... Because there's that whole side of mass hysteria, isn't there?
Yeah, there's mass hysteria. There is some science to it. I mean, if you think that Jung has any sort of objective or scientific validity as a person who put forward ideas that we can use in therapy, he spoke a lot about the collective unconscious and the idea that there is, in fact, evidence to suggest that we have a group consciousness, a group mind, a group level of the unconscious. And I think one of the problems that we have right now is that we are fighting with our narratives. We're fighting with our own maps. We're fighting with our own stories, trying to get through to the truth. We kind of probably know that we're full of shit, but it's almost like adopting a position in an argument just to push it as far as you can and see what happens.
So do you think we've, en masse, bought into the cavalry's always around the corner?
We've definitely en masse bought into something like that. Like something is going to bail us out from the horror that awaits.
The more I read about global warming, for example, the more I just don't get it. The more I just don't understand why we all aren't going, ooh, Paris Climate Agreement, we're all being told, didn't go far enough. Hasn't gone far enough at all. We need to do more. By like highly intelligent people, but we've gone en masse. Nah.
There is also a little bit of like, what I can't see doesn't affect me, and also like if you know that it's gone on. I mean, we're in the Titanic, and the Titanic is really, really hard to turn. The iceberg is there. For some people and for certain, like, how long do you get on the planet, and how long, like, is it for the people in charge? Is it really worth trying to turn this thing around? Why the fuck is a 70-year-old like Donald Trump or like Hillary Clinton
Yeah.
going to give a shit about what happens in 2030?
But I thought they were the type of people that cared about their psychologically about their like about their legacy and stuff. That's what they were actually bothered about.
Obama did. I mean, there are many different types of narcissistic personality disorder. I don't think many people climb into that position of power without having something a little bit wrong with them, without having trauma and a chip on their shoulder and something to prove. Obama was much smoother and much slicker, and Obama was much more vain in that sense. He was very conscious of his legacy and very conscious of having a certain type of legacy.
Yeah.
Being, I don't know who his heroes are. Like a Nelson Mandela-y, Kofi Annan. I'm not just giving them as examples because they're black. They're the first people who come to mind as like smooth, quite Nelson Mandela and later years, quite smooth. It's a lot of liberal values. It's a lot of equality. It's a lot of make things better for future generations. Whereas a Trump, I think he does care about his legacy, but not in the same way. So it's like, I just wanted to be the guy who got shit done. People are going to look back and say, hey, that guy was a fucking asshole, but I don't give a fuck because he got shit done. So instead of being smooth, it's big, bold, dumb moves. But you can, obviously he was bound to do that. But I don't know that, I don't know that any of them really do care about their legacy, because they don't act like they care, and actions speak louder than words.
True.
This is what I teach people when they're trying to figure out if they're the victims of narcissistic abuse. And they go, but you've said a narcissist is X, Y, and Z. Well, my husband, my wife, she also feeds the lonely animals in the street and stupid Guatemalan children, whatever you want. She does acts of charity, so therefore she can't be a narcissist. And I'm like, well, there's a difference between what people say and what they do. So look at what they do. They're acting like they don't give a shit, right? I mean, this whole Paris Agreement just looks like a bit of a circle jerk. Donald Trump has just opted out. He's just said, well, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, Mr. Trump. And he's like, well, what's your next fucking move? He's the president. President Gangster. President Joe Pesci. Fuck you, fuckball. I ain't going to do that shit. Sorry for my New York accent's not very good. But, I like, he doesn't care. I don't think any of them really care. And people with narcissistic personality disorder can't really care.
I get the feeling that your Oxbridge maybe doesn't care about which party they would be in England, as long as they were in power. So they're willing to say, I completely, in my mind, this is the side I completely agree with, but if that's not going to get me in power, I'm going to switch all of that. So I would say they probably don't.
You need to explain Oxbridge. You need to explain that.
Oxbridge is kind of, Oxbridge is Oxford and Cambridge, and Oxbridge refers to people who've gone to Eton, Harrow, and the other two public schools where I can't remember what they're called.
I only thought of Eton and Harrow. Yeah,
I think it was 4. And
it's where most of our prime ministers come
people.
from.
Yeah,
they come. A lot of them, they're from Eton and Harrow, which are the private schools. They go up through the ranks. Then they frequently will actually go to Oxford and do PPP, politics.
PPE.
Sorry, PPE. I wanted to do PPP. Politics, economics, and psychology. And then they'll go and get their double firsts, and if they don't join MI5, they go on to.
If they're not smart.
If they're not smart, then they'll go into politics. So you were saying that people from that set, from the elite Oxbridge set, might care a little bit, but then if it doesn't help them get in power,
they'll flip.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Okay, so that I don't just mouth cliches, I'm trying to think here. And it's just a philosophical question. If your whole life's training has been just to take as much power as you can, why would you, or when would you, or could you even care about the greater good? Because the greater good goes against the principles of you acquiring as much individual power as possible, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
I think there's a lot of stuff, like, I'm very interested, like our man Zizek, I'm very interested in films, and I'm very interested in what's popular, and I'm very interested in what we tell ourselves as stories, and the stories that we choose to watch. And right now Game of Thrones is hugely popular, and really that is just a very thinly veiled metaphor for what's going on in terms of global politics. And who has the sense of the greater good? We have our Northern English everyman, Jon Snow.
Yeah.
He's from the Wall. From the Wall.
I don't know why they portray us as slightly thick.
I don't know why
we're all slightly stupid, but then we say things we're intelligent every now and again, which makes everyone think maybe they're not stupid.
Well, I think we're the equivalent. There's an archetype in America as well, isn't there, of Southerners? So it's the reverse in the South. Like if you're from Carolina or Texas and you talk real slow and you take your time thinking about things, but you don't say much, but then when you do say something, it's like cowboy zen.
Yeah.
It hits the target. So I think they have the invert, like it's Southerners for the Americans.
Right, okay.
But for the Northerners, that's supposed to be our archetype as laconic, slow, don't say much. But then when you do, it's actually quite profound because there's no pretense about it. For people listening to this, they'll be like, what the fuck are you talking? You don't have Jon Snow's accent.
That was quite good. It was
all right, that wasn't it?
Right, yeah.
You'd actually think I'd practice that. Obviously, Kit himself isn't. He's quite posh. He's from the South.
I have seen him on a Graham Norton or a talk show.
Oh, you haven't? No,
he's like quite a nice bloke.
No, he's nice lad. But that's the idea. So you have like your working class hero. He's a bastard Jon Snow, and he didn't want to be king. He was voted in democratically and almost forced in at gunpoint, which is what I said. Like, if you're going to put somebody in power, it should be them kicking and screaming, saying, fuck you, I don't want this, and the people saying, you must, and putting them in at gunpoint. So he had that versus your Lannisters versus Daenerys, who's going power mad and wants to use weapons of mass destruction represented by dragons. Go on, you were going to say something.
No, it just made me think of Cromwell when you were saying someone forced in. And then I was trying to think that I'm sure I've read something about the guy who writes Game of Thrones, basing it on English history, but from like
War of the Roses.
Yeah, 1212 to like 1900.
Yeah, North versus South. The kingdom has for people who don't know, Game of Thrones is actually very close to British history. There is a wall. There were savages from beyond the wall.
Yeah,
they didn't have Northern English accents. They were the Picts and the Scots, and the people who originally built the wall were the Romans because they were like, fucking hell, these guys are lunatics. You had like a lot of the power and the interest and the wealth was down in where the royalty was, which is true today. Yep. There is a separate economy in London, and the north is abandoned basically because there's fuck all up there but snow. And it's very, very true to life. What a lot of people probably don't know, even English people don't know, there were genocides of Northerners based on the fact that they were from the north. Sometimes if there was a rebellion in the north, they'd send soldiers up from the south and they would just hunt down entire bloodlines and put them to death.
There's a famous rebellion, one from Cornwall and one from the north of England, that Henry VII put down. I can't remember the names of the two rebellions, but I remember learning about them. And I remember thinking, wow, that was quite vicious on his own people.
Well, the Americans who are into libertarianism, they should be interested in that aspect of our history, because the reason why they rebelled is because taxation without representation. Because they were being too heavily taxed by some distant fucking throne-wearing, crown-wearing inbred twat with buck tooth and fucking scurvy and syphilis. And they just said, well, we're not, what's in it for us? Why should we do that? And then they would get in lots of trouble and be pulled up and tortured. Slayed. So I do think there is an attempt at an awakening, and I'm very aware of the stories that we're telling ourselves at the moment, and I'm very aware of what the mass consensus and the mass narrative is. The last Star Wars film that came out, all of the heroes at the end died. Did you see it? It was actually the best.
Which one was it?
In my opinion, it was the best of the new Star Wars films. I can't remember. It's not called A New Hope.
Another one with John Boyega.
It's called Your Hope Is Crushed. It's got the English lad. He was in. He played the terrorist in that comedy terrorist film that probably isn't.
I'm pretty sure I know what you mean.
Three Lions. Riz Aswan.
Yeah, wasn't the film set before the very first Star Wars?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I've seen it. Everyone does die in that.
Everyone dies.
I thought it was quite new for Star Wars.
Well, I mean, you could say that we all knew that they died from the beginning of the story, but I just thought it was interesting. This big summer blockbuster is on, and every fucker dies, and they're all rebels. So all the rebels of imperialism sacrifice themselves at the end of the film. And I was like, my take on it was, we can imagine, it's easier for us to imagine our own brave self-destruction than it is a new world. It's easier for us to imagine our own brave, rebellious self-destruction than it is an end to the current economic system that we are enslaved by.
Yeah, because this is the thing, I don't understand why anyone's caring. I think this is why I'm bringing up the self-harm thing. You know, are we bothered about the economy? We're all going to die because of global warming? Probably not. Are we bothered about getting into wars and arguments? Are we bothered about mass migration? Are we bothered about any of this? If it's all just going to blow up anyway. Well, so this is being shoved down our throats as well, and the science is being shoved down our throats, but it is happening, but we're not doing anything about it.
Yeah. Well, until it's not. See, this is it's like a human software fault. As we look outside, there's a garden there, and for the people listening, we can see a garden. And I always try and imagine what would people's response be if it was happening right there. Yeah. So if there's immigrants right there, or starving children right there, or people with the Ebola virus right there, you're going to do something about it.
Yeah,
most people would. But even like idiots and not particularly nice people, if they saw like a kid starving outside,
they'd go and help him.
They'd go, "Here's a cheese sandwich. I'm not going to let you in my house, but here's one cheese sandwich, and I already ate all the ham." That we would do a lot more, and I think we kind of start to resent it because it's so fucking far away. And I'm like, just the other day, I want to take a trip to Italy. And I was like, oh, there's all these places I want to see. There's this old dead town that I want to go and see. Beautiful places. And then, of course, in the south of Italy, they've got a huge immigration crisis.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, maybe I should go down there and volunteer. And then I was like, what the fuck am I even considering that for? I'm not going to do that. It's never going to happen. I'm never going to consciously make the decision to go, I'm now going to go and give up 7 days of my life to go to southern Italy in the middle of a heat wave, which it's in right now. It's 40 degrees C.
It is.
To help people, to hand out bottles of water and the little military food packs that I can't remember the name of right now. I'm just not even going to do it, and I resent the fact that I'm not going to do it. So I'm like, oh fuck, now I feel guilty. Oh fuck you. Oh fucking news, fucking immigrants, fucking Italian government, fucking sun, fucking temperature, fucking. But if it was right here, I'd totally do something. Yeah. If you gave me like 5 people and said, can you just, like, you have money, just don't let them die, I'd be like, fine. Fine. Just put them in my garden and I won't let them die. Similarly, when it comes to issues of global warming and destruction of the environment, if we were all made to live in that space and you could, with your own eyes, watch another person shit, piss, burn, throw acid on the floor right in front of you, you'd be like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's what large corporations do on a daily level. At a huge, but we don't, like, I'll attack a human being for doing that, but I won't attack a corporation. Why? Human software fault. And also, where do I begin?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Go to a demonstration with a bunch of smelly people who I don't want to hang out with? Hi, my name is Daisy Rose, and I haven't washed my dreadlocks in 6 years. Ugh, fuck off, Daisy. Go fuck yourself. I live in a camper van. Ugh, fuck off. And that's how I really, authentically, honestly feel about it.
Yeah.
I would do something if I knew what to do, but then my brain goes, well, don't be lazy. Think of something to do. And I'm like, I don't know, make a YouTube video? Or I don't fucking know. You want me to change my life? Like, how? When I can clearly see nobody else is. Everybody's talking about Love Island.
No one is. Yeah, we are.
No one is. Everybody's talking about Love Island. So where would you begin? So I turn to Zizek and I say, Zizek, where do we begin? And he says, I don't say don't do nothing, but sometimes doing nothing is the most radical thing to do. So what should we do? Read a book. Oh, all right. Well, I'm already doing that, so I guess that's it then. Guess that's where my revolution starts. What do you do? Well, I mean, how do we Do we form a terrorist cell and start kidnapping politicians and beheading them and saying, you motherfuckers need to do so? Like, what do you do? That was a joke. I would never... Christ almighty. I'm going to have to delete that. I'll probably forget. I'll forget to delete it. But do you know what I mean? Like, the people who really care about animal rights, what did they end up doing? They actually did start kidnapping journalists and torturing them.
I don't personally agree with kidnapping with journalists and torturing them.
Neither do I, William. But what should be done?
I just... The more I was reading last night and today, and the more I've been thinking about it over the last few weeks and stuff, I mean, even with Corbyn... Okay, I've never voted Labour. I voted Green the last 2 elections. Before that, I think I've only voted once before that, and that was for the Conservative Party. But I'm pretty sure that for the overwhelming majority of people in this country, life would be easier and better for them if someone like Corbyn was in power. Yet he doesn't seem to be able to win.
He's not. Yeah. Wow.
That's why, I mean, that's just another idea that's come into my head. I'm thinking, this is just like we're all self-harming. We think we should be beaten for some reason.
I think that there is an unconscious effect there where you love the kind geography teacher with the good ideas and the sandals and the suit, but you don't really want the kind geography teacher with the sandals and the suit to be driving the fucking airplane. That's why Corbyn will never get in.
Well, this is the thing I never understand. I mean, about American politics, and I could be completely wrong, and I could be going completely out on a limb, but when I watch any American news, TV channels, Fox, CNN, whatever, I see the films, see TV shows from America, they all seem to be really overly concerned with being able to have a beer with their president, and in being an everyman. Yeah. Whereas to me, like the guys I have a beer with, I want them as far away from the big red nuke button as possible.
Yeah. No, there is a lot of pandering that happens just to secure votes, and it happens in the UK. Every politician that's ever been a prime minister always wants to have a photo opportunity where they kiss a baby. Yes, there'll always be the obligatory pint in the local pub. I'm just like you are, chaps. It's like, seriously, you're just like us. You were playing fucking hockey at age 16. You're in a room full of people who've been stabbed, glassed, fucking headbutted, and that's just by their own mums. You know, we're all the same, aren't we, chaps? No, because none of us have ever had anal sex with another man, forcibly, a man who's 20 years older than us.
Pig head.
Whilst we spit roasted a pig head. And you know that's like there is something there's like, which is the trauma bonding, which is like this idea that in the British, like for some people they'll have no idea what I'm talking about there. It is known, and I was in the British public school system, so I have experience of it, that a lot of people who end up in British boarding schools end up being sexually assaulted by older men, boys, sorry, or sometimes by their teachers as well, and it's considered part of daily life.
Which is alien.
Stephen Fry said it. He said, "Of course I was buggered. Of course I was buggered. Never did me any harm." Really, Stephen? Another man forcibly inserted his erect penis into your rectum and then shook it about until he jizzed, and that never affected you. Come on now, dude. I mean, but it's known as a trauma bonding technique. This is, you know, it's what the ancient Spartans would do. They would enforce homosexual practice on all of the Spartans first. So every Spartan who was alive was bisexual by training.
Okay.
Did you not know that? You look shocked.
I'm not shocked. I'm just a bit thinking. Oh, they don't understand why. I don't understand what it would achieve. I mean, I kind of get the agoge. Yeah. The little bit I've read about it, I understand. Yeah. You know, it's a little bit of eugenics. Is that the word?
Well, it's eugenics, and it was just an idea. Well, eugenics and an idea of creating a superior race. But the point of making the boys sleep together and encouraging sexual activity between the boys and between a boy and an older warrior was to breed a kind of man love that would make the warriors fight harder for each other, because they were fighting for people they loved with an erotic passion, like a deep, not just loyalty, not just camaraderie, but like a deep love.
Yeah.
Like you would fight if your wife had been attacked or your mother had been attacked. So they did it for that reason, and it was so inculcated into them that some historians have claimed that when a Spartan had his wedding night, the Spartan wife would have her hair cut short and she would wear a shift, the same nightwear as a boy would wear, just for that first night.
Right.
They would sleep together in the dark. Can I call you Terry? Terry's my fave. She'd be like that. Oh, for God's sake. Yeah, okay, but only for the first month. And then you need to get a grip, mate.
I mean, I'm banging on about this self-harming thing as well, but I've just read a quote today as well from Trump. It says, North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. Mm-hmm. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. It will be a harnessing of the basic power of the universe. Behind this air attack will follow sea and land forces in such numbers and power as they have not yet been seen. What the fuck?
My cock is a huge cock. It's the best cock. Everybody saw my cock and they said, wow, it's a big cock. He sounds like Gaddafi after a line of coke. Or Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein used to talk like that. If you dare to do this, I will unleash the fury of the heavens upon you. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, wow, dude, just chill out. You're supposed to be diplomatic. I read something the other day that said this happens every year. North Korea has a little bit of a snarl at South Korea and America because around this time every year, the American military and the South Korean military have booked their joint military exercises.
Sorry, say that again.
Every year, around now, August, the American military and the South Korean military do exercises together.
Okay.
You know, this is common practice when countries are friends with each other. Like we were talking last year about Serbia and Russia.
Right.
And they called their military exercise Slavic Brotherhood. Jesus Christ, guys.
Excellent.
Right now, at this point in history, you've got to call a military exercise Slavic Brotherhood. The white sword of the world, which will save everybody. Come on. So they have that joint exercise. So every year around this time, North Korea has a little snarl. And so, knowing that it's a symbolic snarl, that it is provoked by, or the person who's delivering that snarl is being provoked by it, what do? You just ignore it, or you say, chill out, North Korea, tone down your rhetoric, whatever. I don't know what Obama's responses were, but presumably in over 8 years, he must have had 8 responses to the same stimulus, which is North Korea is kicking off. Why? Because we're in the area and we're showing our military might. Now, you've been around dangerous dogs and you've been around naughty dogs. When a naughty dog is up on the settee and you tell it to get down and it snarls at you, you don't respond with more aggression and more snarling. You try and bring it down because the dog is just, it's not even a serious snarl. The dog is just going, I want to sit on the couch. And you're like, get off the couch. No, fuck you. But he's not like, I'm going to rip your throat out because I genuinely feel threatened. He knows he's being naughty.
Yeah.
Kim Jong-un knows perfectly well that he's being outrageous. Yeah. And he knows that it's this caricature that he's kind of forced to play. He was born into this.
Yeah.
And it's pure symbolic. Why the hell is Trump responding to it as though it is a non-symbolic threat? Every year at this time I shall rattle my saber at you, which actually is what the Russians have done for a long time, is they fly near our airspace. And they've been doing it for decades.
So the Kim Jong-un or Il, I can never bloody remember.
I think he's on this one.
Whatever.
Your forgetting of the name is inevitable.
It is.
Inevitable. Go on.
So do you think he's actually trying to just keep himself alive by playing this character for the closest people, or do you don't think he's actually dialed into this thing? You think he's actually knowingly playing a character?
Knowingly
keeping himself alive?
No, I shouldn't have said it like that.
He's not just crazy.
Because the implication is, I think I don't like. Here's my big obsession at the moment as far as psychology goes. one of the psychology and psychotherapy's major weak points is we keep referring back to the individual and the individual mind as though that individual mind and that individual person exists as some kind of an island. We are tribal creatures. We guide each other's actions through 1,000,001 unconscious cues every day. I don't think he's inside of his own room watching CNN going, fucking hell, I survived another day. I better think of some crazy shit to say tomorrow. No, I think he's part of that culture and he's part of that tribe. He knows he's the alpha of that tribe, and so he's going to do what is expected of him. But he's part of a very sick tribe, with a very sick worldview that knows it's totally out of place with the rest of the world, that knows its cultural values are at the antithesis of the rest of the world, and all of its allies are telling it to stop. Well, Russia's not a communist country anymore anyway. China ostensibly is still a communist country, though it does capitalism way better than capitalist countries do. And even China is saying to it, listen, dude, you need to chill.
Well, that's for one thing I've noticed as well, that China and Russia have never imposed sanctions on North Korea before. And Trump seems to have been the only president yet that's got these two countries who are adversaries to actually level these what did I just say?
Sanctions.
These sanctions against North Korea.
I don't think Trump got them to do it.
Maybe he didn't, but maybe it's the same point.
I don't think that China and Russia can truly be considered adversaries of America anymore. I think it's a story that we've been living for such a long time that it's hard to realize. Maybe this is a good point to make. Once you've lived a story for long enough, when you see that story isn't real, that narrative isn't true, it's very hard to embrace the new. Like, you're so used to your map of reality, and things in our lives are changing so rapidly that people just can't get a hold of the newness of it. The newness of China is like 5, 6, 7 years old. What China is today versus what it was in 2010 is a very, very new thing. So that's quite hard to get a grip of. But to your point, I don't think that they're doing this because they're big fans of Trump and Trump has negotiated them to engage in sanctions. I think they're just looking at the world stage and going, look, we want to protect what we are. We want to protect what we have. The world is changing. The way North Korea is operating might have been cool in the 80s, but you can't do that shit anymore. And we want to be in the world. Russia and, well, Russia's led by Putin. They want to be in the world. They want to be part of it. The old communist regime, and it's not because of communism per se, but the way that communism manifested in that country was, fuck the world. It was more like feudal Japan. We'll do our own thing. Fuck you all. This is who we are. We're going to do our own thing. We don't need any of you. Screw you guys. Now it's not like that because I don't think any country can survive like that anymore. We're going to have globalism, whether we like it or not.
It's happening.
Yeah, we've got it. We're in the birth phases of globalism.
See, what I always think is if I go to a party, I don't know, there's 20 people there. I'm going to say normally there's 2 fucktards, like real like idiots.
Out of 20, yeah, there
20.
will be, yeah.
There's 5 or 6 people that probably want to be in some cigar room drinking brandy, talking about shit they don't understand. And then there's
That's
probably,
us, isn't it?
yeah, probably, yeah. And then there's,
And we're the leaders of that fucking group.
Yeah. And then there's 12, 13 people that are just nice people.
Yeah.
That are genuinely quite intelligent.
Yeah.
And will do the right thing.
Yeah.
So this gets back again to the point with self-harming. How have we voted Trump in? How have they voted Trump in? How have they voted Putin in? How have they voted Modi in?
Well, hang on.
Or Modi or Modi in India?
You've got to question whether, like, Putin being voted in...
Yeah, okay. Trump...
Head of the KGB, massive amount of power and influence, gangster number 1 in Russia.
Yeah, I mean,
he's the godfather in fucking Russia.
That is the thing as well, re-gangster state.
Oh, right. Is that worth going?
Excellent.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Gangster State. Is that about Russia? Or?
It is, yeah, but it's about Russia about 15, 20 years ago.
Okay. How did we vote Trump in? We collectively didn't. The abandoned and the depressed and the hurt and the lost of America voted him in. Because liberals ignored them, mocked them, were smug, were dismissive, because that's what we do very well.
But if Bernie Sanders had been going up for it, would he have been voted in, man?
Well, we'll never know, because fucking Clinton saw to that, didn't she? I don't know. I really don't know. I like the point about that I made about Corbyn. I would also leverage at Sanders, perhaps not quite as forcefully. You know, you can like Sanders, you can agree with Sanders, you can think, you know, that's probably was America's best hope in some sense. But do you really want him flying the plane? Is he a leader?
You're talking about the geography teacher again?
I'm talking about the geography teacher with the flip-flops on with the good ideas. And you're like, yeah, I want to hang with you, but do I want you running the whole country? We are still chimps. We are domesticated primates. And whoever the leader is, we have an unreasonable psychological need for them to be a bit of a fucking cock. And a bit hard.
Because we're the alpha.
Because they're the alpha. You've got to believe in that. You've got to have that. That's why this is just purely conjecture on my part. This is just me just taking my limited understanding of politics and my semi-understanding of psychology and mushing the two together. When you have the polls leading up to an election, people will go, oh yeah, we're going to vote for Lefty McLefterson, the guy who's so kind and the good ideas. We're totally going to do that. We're totally going to do that. So whoever Lefty McLefterson is looks like they're going to win. And then when it's actually crunch time and they have to put that X in the box, they shit out and they go, we should just do what makes the nation safe. We should just go with whoever has the biggest missile hanging out of his pants or her pants, you know. And that's what happened. Now, that was a classic case of that happened with the Trump and Clinton battle, which dredged up a lot of the dark unconsciousness of America and of Europe as well. And to the point where we know, or we know with almost 90% certainty, that Bill Clinton was screaming from the sidelines, "Stop what you're doing," to her. And they had a huge falling out, apparently, over it. Because he was telling her, you can't fucking ignore these people. Don't ignore the Rust Belt. Stop being so smug. Stop being so certain of your own victory. Stop stop with this arrogant attitude. You're going to lose the race. He correctly and accurately pinpointed exactly what was wrong with her campaign, and she fucking ignored him. She totally ignored him.
Plus what we were saying last time, that quite possibly the only way to rebel anymore is going right.
There is a desire to rebel by going right, and a part of me wanted Trump to get in. A part of me was like, well, I'm sick of what we've got. At least a complete, pull the pin on the grenade and let's just blow this thing up and see what happens. And Trump went with that because he knew there was people out there like me thinking like that. And he said, I'm going to drain the swamp. I'm going to drain the swamp. No, he's not. They ain't draining shit. There's no fucking. Nobody drains the swamp. You are the swamp. You live in the swamp. The swamp is your fucking ecosystem. You drain that, you're dead. So, I mean, even Zizek was saying a vote for Trump would be better than a vote for Hillary. And even though I will complain about Trump and you will complain about Trump, I don't know that it's worse.
No, I don't.
I mean, would you really have wanted? Do any of us really would have wanted Hillary in?
You know what I really wanted? I wanted someone not quite as aloof and as right-wing as our Prime Minister in power in England. But then I really, really wanted to see Bernie Sanders in power in America. So I could kind of watch and go, ooh, does it work?
Yeah.
And then if it does work,
let's run the experiment in a place where it doesn't hurt us. Well, the thing is in America is the pain is in and it's already been in. The horror is already there, and again, that's something that's totally underreported. I read this morning that the Canadians are setting up camps on the borders with America because of the number of American immigrants who are just walking across.
American immigrants.
That's right.
The richest nation in the world.
That's right, for some.
Yeah.
It's good if you live in Rome, but if you live in the outskirts of the Roman Empire, maybe it's not so fucking great.
The money isn't flowing around.
Nah, it's not really. Not really.
I mean,
we've known for years now that there are cardboard villages in America where there's just fucking hundreds and hundreds of people who are just homeless and fucked.
Yeah. I mean, I did read a great article a couple of months back about wealth distribution, and then the argument that the wealthy create jobs, we create businesses, and they create tax for the economy, etc. So it builds everything up. When in really it's the proliferation of wealth that's the main issue.
Yeah.
So you can start a business, employ people, that's great. You can get really rich, but then the amount of money that you then proliferate and hold back then reduces the amount of cash in the economy, so it doesn't flow around. The problem is where me as a billionaire spends my money, I only give my money to other billionaires. Yeah, I'm employing people and we're all spending cash in the economy.
Yep.
But my money's going nowhere but to other billionaires. So I could be worth 9 billion last year.
Yeah.
I could spend 2 billion.
Yeah.
But then the year after I'll be back up to 9 million because another billionaire will have bought shit off me.
Well, that's why in a previous podcast I said that the economy of America, the economy of the UK, the economy of all European countries is addicted to drugs, and it's addicted to cheap immigrant labour because it keeps money moving. And massively wealthy people, you can have a constipation and a sort of blocking up and stillness of cash. Well, cash that's not, as far as like for that individual person, that's great. Their value is just going to accrue and accrue. But as far as the economy is concerned, that's really dog shit.
Yeah,
it's really not good. I don't understand economics. But I had it explained to me by, my mate down in Canary Wharf, his wife, who's high level in as a tax advisor for corporations. She was like, and she said basically, we need the money changing hands. We need it out there. We need it moving because that's what this economy looks at. It goes, what's the economy doing? Well, if everybody tomorrow just takes what their finite amount of money is, puts it in the bank and says, I'm not spending any money for 24 hours, it would have really, really bad effect on the whole economy.
Right.
Yeah.
But then I think I read in the same article that was talking about billionaires and very high level millionaires who were just moving their money around between each other. That I think it was something like if you make below, I think it was 45 grand. What's that in dollars?
45 grand in English.
Yeah.
At the moment, maybe 55. Let me carry on, and I'll just.
So
if
you make less than that, or on that, you spend your money in your local economy, and you boost your local economy.
Right.
If you make more than that, your money tends to go, or the money you make after that just tends to go, gets proliferated around the mass of people who are rich anyway.
It's $58,000.
58,000.
Yeah, and that's probably not a bad cut-off point for saying that's like middle class income.
But we're the mass. So again, self-harming, we've gone, nah, let's not vote in the guy that's going to take the money back from those really rich people and make our lives a little bit better.
Again, I think it's a failure of narrative. I think it's a failure of our models of the world because it's hard to understand. It's really hard to get your head around. Like if somebody says, I have 10 quid, I have 100 quid, I have 1,000 quid, you're golden. You know what that looks like. You know what it feels like. You know what it can do. I have 1 million quid. Oh, that's a lot. I have 100 million. I have 1 billion. I have 3.5 billion pounds. And your brain starts going, fuck off, mate. What? I can't keep up. Like, what are you talking about? And you look at what Bill Gates earns every minute, and you may as well just go, it's a fadillion, squillion, fadillion, jajillion, for dandelions. It's not even counted in money anymore. It's counted in dandelions.
But how did he become the face of this, like, the good person? I don't understand it. His company outwardly pays no fucking tax. They do everything they can to not pay any tax.
It's called good PR. As long as he keeps blasting money into charity and studying pandemics to save the future of humanity, he's going to be considered a good dude. You said there was things that you pulled up that you wanted to pontificate about. Was that one of the things, the billionaire thing?
Yeah.
Okay. The idea that billionaires can actually stagnate the economy, and that we foolishly are not voting to tax them more.
It's the proliferation of wealth, I think we're saying, was stagnating the economy, because I think it was, I'm trying to remember the article I was reading, but I think what it was getting at as well, that before Germany was Germany, so before 50 something, but I can't remember whether I'm right, when it was little nation states.
Yeah.
In one area of Germany, or what wasn't Germany, an area of what is Germany now, a nation state there, so I don't know, Prussia, something like that, I can't remember. They basically came up with the idea that money decreases, the value of money decreases over time. So if you don't spend your money, it decreases.
Yeah.
So for you to buy the most expensive things,
I think there's a word for that.
What?
That money goes down in value over time. Carry on
Okay.
with what you're saying.
So then you have to spend your money, and you have to spend it quickly. So the article was sort of saying, you can be a billionaire for your lifetime.
Are you saying that in this Prussian nation they were saying you must spend your money?
Yeah.
It was the law.
Yeah, and it wasn't. It was the law that
It would be Germans that forced this on people.
It was the law. That
Stop hoarding your money. We don't like the hoarding of the money.
But it's socialist in some sense, I suppose, as well, isn't it?
It's very socialist.
But I mean, the article was going on saying, okay, we don't need to say that the value of the gold you have, or the currency, whatever currency, is going to devalue so much in a month. So you can be a billionaire for your lifetime.
Yes.
But as soon as you die, that wealth is going to quickly lose all of its, not currency, it's going to devalue immediately. So your next of kin has to spend that pretty quickly.
Inflation is the steady and persistent rate of change in the level of prices in an economy. The most common measure of inflation is the Consumer Price Index, which is the overall change in the prices of goods and services that people typically buy over time. So, yeah, the idea that you can just accrue and accrue and accrue, yes, that's not helpful for an economy. You want to keep the money moving. The value of money has to go down over time because we keep putting more money in at the one end of the sausage machine.
Yep.
So it has to depreciate in value. How comfortable are you with the government telling you what you can and can't do with money?
I'd be really comfortable, I think, if they could show me that it would decrease crime, increase life expectancy, all those type of...
So... people often say that like the Scandinavian countries are good examples of where a more socialist approach to life works. But they have governments that can observably and evidentially prove that they are responsible and adult and do look after people. And therefore, if I lived in Sweden and the Swedish government said, this is what I want to do with your money, I'd have a different, and I did live in Sweden, and if they did say that to me, I would have a different emotional response than if the British government said, this is what I want to do with your money. And I'm like, I'm driving over potholes every day. There's homeless,
you're not spending my money very well.
There's homeless people that I can see just out and about. Like, I haven't seen this many homeless people in Liverpool and in Birkenhead since like the early 2000s. I don't feel the same way about the British government doing it.
Okay.
Whereas if you like Sweden, Denmark, I don't know. I never lived in Denmark, never lived in Norway, but certainly in Sweden, I'd feel a lot more comfortable about it because I'm like, yes, I believe this nation is run by adults in an adult way. The UK, I don't know, man. I might get a little bit squirrely if they start going, we want to redistribute the wealth. You can't be hoarding all the wealth. I'd be like, man, just stay away from my money, motherfuckers. I don't know. But obviously, I understand what you're saying, but I also understand the other side of the argument. Maybe I'm not as left as I thought I was. I do understand the other side of the argument, which says, look, I don't really want the government telling me what I can and can't be doing with my cash.
But I think the other side of the point, I think someone would argue straight away that if everyone knew that everyone in the country had more available cash, then anything you could buy would go up in price. So your cash would still be worth the same as it was the day before they released all the wealth.
Sorry, did you say that the government could guarantee that?
So yeah, but
So who goes first in this gamble? Do I give you the money and then you go, don't worry, give me your money, it's safe? Or do other people go first? I see that it works and then I give the money.
I mean, I think what I was trying to say was the argument against redistribution of wealth is that every company in that country knows there's been a redistribution of wealth. So your Coke can was worth £1 on Monday. They redistributed all wealth Monday night.
Yeah.
So now your can of Coke is worth £2. So the value...
The can of Coke that I already own, that I can sell to
No,
people,
but you can buy the next
that
day.
I would like to buy. Okay.
So it goes up by £1 because they all know you've got more cash. I get that, but why can't we say...
Hang on, why would I have more cash? I'm richer than you.
Yeah.
You're going to get some of my money.
Yeah.
I'm still going to pay £2 for this can of Coke that was £1 on Monday.
Yeah.
How do I win in that scenario?
You don't.
Fuck you, buddy.
But you got a nicer
Guess
place.
again, motherfucker.
But you've got a much nicer place to live where you don't fear being bottled.
Because everybody's in this socialist utopia where
Everyone's
violence
just
doesn't
dead nice to each other.
is dead nice. Yeah. No, I think again it's narratives. Like I think it depends on where you were born, what your cultural conditioning is, what your expectations are, and how you were raised. I mean, I was raised in a very capitalistic home environment to two people who were in the 80s making loads of money through selling shit. So the idea, like redistribution of wealth, to me, I like the idea in theory, but I like it like I like sci-fi novels. And I don't think, I looked at communism. I looked into the eyes of communism long and hard, and I looked at Marxism, and I ended up walking away from it going, I really can't believe that anybody thought that this was something that could be applicable in this world. It's sci-fi level shit. No. Because what we need, this is my theory, is in order for that distribution of wealth to work and actually be fair and be enforced, we need artificial intelligence.
Well, I just think we need to vote in the intelligent, good people.
Where are they?
They don't exist, do they? They're not a thing.
No, I have much more faith in writing a computer program that is forced to be intelligent and benevolent and do things for the greater good. I don't, I'm making a silly point about Marxism, but I think that other people have made a similar point. Like, it's more of like a futuristic concept that makes a lot of sense if you've harnessed free energy
and you get rid of the economy.
Because
it's not really a thing. You can't hold on to it. It doesn't exist.
I think that via nuclear war or pandemic or whatever you want, the economy is going to go. Along a long enough timeline of human history, the economy is going to go. The economy as we have it now has to go. We were trading pebbles. We were trading jewels
shiny
and
things.
Gold and shiny things that had implicit value. Do you know that gold is all stardust? You look at your face. Gold is the particles of an exploded sun, and it's the shrapnel that is fired through the earth. Apparently, if you keep digging down, you'll find gold like 3 miles deep, but then it stops because it hit the earth. So that's actually liquefied sun. So the thing that we value most in the world is liquefied sun, star. It's pretty cool, isn't it?
That's mad.
That's mad, isn't it? So yeah, so we had gold, we had jewels, and then we had the promise of gold and jewels, and now we've got mass hypnosis. Yeah. Like it's pebbles for pebbles that are based on the lending of pebbles, that is based on the bet that you might have more pebbles than that guy has pebbles, that's based on the bet that, you know what I mean? Like it becomes this this fractionated psychedelic
ridiculous.
You have modern economics explained. I had explained to me by the girl who's a specialist in Canary Wharf, and I started to feel like I'd taken acid. I was like, what does that mean? What is all like? Who's betting? Why is there betting in the economy?
Well, you can spread bet, and that doesn't get taxed. Mm-hmm. And spread betting is just betting on the points going up or down on a certain share.
Right. I don't mind individuals doing that. I'm a little bit freaked out that banks can do that.
I don't mean banks can spread bet. I think it's only hedge funds that can spread bet. Mm-hmm. But I think that banks can short, and shorting I think if I get this right, is if I borrow £1 million worth of shares from you, and I give you, well, I haven't given you the million. I've borrowed $1 million, haven't I? And I bet that those are going down by, I don't know, £200,000. So when I give you 800, I sell them at 800,000, and I give you those back. So I've made 200,000. But I don't see how anyone's allowed to do that. Why would anyone be allowed to do that? That doesn't make any sense.
There doesn't seem to be much adult control with the economy, and that's why we are doomed to another economic crisis that is fairly imminent. It has to happen again, and that is where I start to go, well, why not? If actions speak louder than words, and what we actually have is the truth of what is, that means on some level the banks must have a higher authority than the policymakers.
The Iron Bank.
The Iron Bank. The Iron Bank has a higher authority than Cersei Lannister. I mean, she can cut your head off, but the Iron Bank can withdraw all of her cash and all of her armies, and she'll just be tossed down the street again naked, whilst people throw poop at her and shout, shame, shame, shame.
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 Big shame.
So, yeah, no, it looks to me as though the tail is wagging the dog, and that's dangerous.
No, it is scary. I mean, I've been sort of trying to read a bit about World War One because I really didn't know anything about it, and it's coming up to 100 years next year, isn't it? And I've been trying to listen to a few podcasts and trying to understand a bit about why it started. And
now you're a conspiracy theorist.
I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist.
Anybody who studies the origins of World War One and then its knock-on effect to World War Two, guaranteed becomes a conspiracy theorist.
What's going through my head at the moment is that you went from this point, I think, from about the end of the Franco-Prussian War and Wellington beating Napoleon and all of that sort of stuff happening, and then you having these highly intelligent, war-weary politicians in power all over Europe. So I think you've got Otto von Bismarck, you've got Wellington, I can't remember the French president's name at the time, but Austro-Hungary Empire has a very good politician. And then you suddenly get to about 1913, 1912, and all of a sudden all of the royal families seem to get all of the power back. And then obviously what happens with the Black Hand happens, and the Austro-Hungarian prince is shot in Serbia, I think.
No, Sarajevo.
Sorry.
Yeah. By a Bosnian kid.
By a Bosnian. And then obviously war starts. But the point that I'm sort of trying to get at is that we go from these highly intelligent politicians being in power who are war weary, who don't want us to fight any more wars, who realise the strategy to keep Europe and keep these powers happy with each other, and trading is a lot better than fighting with each other. But all of a sudden, royal families take over, full of stupid people, and then they decide to fight a war. Basically, very, very basic. And I feel like we're kind of doing the same thing at the moment. We've started sort of saber rattling. And we've gone from maybe not super highly intelligent politicians, but to politicians now that we voted in, who we all know aren't particularly intelligent, aren't particularly great politicians, aren't career politicians, definitely, and expect them not to do something stupid.
Oh, I see what you mean. Sort of like leaning on the unqualified, leaning on people who are just famous, like a royal person would be, and then being terribly, terribly disappointed when they make an awful twat of themselves.
Yeah. And
make a big mess. I think the situation is a little bit different.
There is a parallel there? A small one?
There is a parallel. There was something a little bit more sinister with World War One, which is the evidence that, which there's no point in getting into it now because it's probably worth its own podcast, the effect of secret societies. And I don't mean that I'm an idiot a cabal who believes that the world is run by men in black hoods called the Illuminati, but the world at that time was definitely run by groups of men who did believe in magic, who believed in very strange things, who did meet up and put black hoods on and do strange things with each other. Not because I'm not saying that gave them magical powers, but I'm not actually saying that. What I'm saying is that they believed it. Like, magic and secret societies was huge. Some of it was religious, some of it had its roots in Christianity, some of it had its roots in Judaism, so on and so forth. But the sinister thing with World War One, to me, was that it was you can almost plot it as the war that takes place between, if you don't like the word secret society, well, today we would call it special interest groups. But back then, people liked dressing up. They were into Orientalism, they were into magic words, they were into magic ceremonies, so they fucking had magic, and they didn't call themselves special interest groups, they called themselves secret fucking societies. It's like when I talk about this to people about the Nazis, and I'm like, they're all into magic. And they're like, no, they fucking weren't. I'm like, dude, fucking Himmler walked around with the Bhagavad Gita on him all the time. The top ranking guys, Hitler and his boys, believed that they had this magical purpose, and that's why their whole narrative is so fucked up, because they believed in really fucking weird shit. They believed in magic. What's
the Bhagavad Gita?
The Bhagavad Gita is the sacred text of the Hindus.
Right.
And it describes like, Hinduism is a very, very old religion. We don't really know how old it is. Like, modern scholars say it's 5,000 years old. Hindus claim that it's way, way older than that, possibly 15,000 years old. And it describes a very alternative view of human history and a very alternative view of who we are. So the Nazis had a story of who they were that is strange. And they believed in conspiracy theories. Hitler did not attack the Jews because they were an inferior race, though many people believe that he did. He did believe in inferior races. Some of his Nazi cronies believed the Jews were inferior. Hitler didn't. Hitler attacked the Jews explicitly as punishment for what the banks did to Germany. He said that in a speech. He said, if you do not change your banking policies, we will attack your people. We will punish your people. And the original punishment was just to throw them out of the country. It wasn't to kill them. But he was a conspiracy theorist 100%. He believed there is a conspiracy. And if you look at what happened, it looks very much like a conspiracy.
World War One or World War Two?
For both.
Right.
For both. So there was the conspiracies that went on in World War One, which, if you want to do a whole podcast on this, is one of my favourite subjects, like the creation of Israel and what the British Zionists did in order to create Israel, and how... So World War II isn't really a history of battles between secret societies as much, but it's a reaction to secret societies, and it's a reaction to conspiracy theories, some of which were rooted in pure paranoia, and some of which were right fucking there. I mean, around all that time, all across the world, if you even if you look at Spain, what happened in the Civil War in Spain, and then when Franco got into power, that's because he believed that the rebellion in Spain was a Judeo-Masonic conspiracy that was also partly funded by Opus Dei, they're a branch of the ultra strict, quite mystical branch of the Catholic Church. And he was trying to... So Franco killed hundreds of thousands of people trying to stamp out a conspiracy that was based on secret societies. That's World War II. That was 1939 that happened.
Yeah.
So that's why I said to you, when you study World War One and you look at the knock on, like, World War One kind of bleeds into World War Two.
Like I say, I'm trying to read a lot about it, just because I realised it's coming to 100 years. We didn't really do it in school. I don't know a great deal about it.
I think we were fed a load of shit in school. We were just fed absolute fucking nonsense in school.
So I'm trying to educate myself on it and see what happened. But I mean, the other parallel I can see with China in the South China Sea, trying to expand their empire, basically, as I see it.
Yeah,
I'm never trying to get control of probably trading rights.
I read something the other day that said, yeah, look at China trying to take control of the South China Sea. Surely that belongs to China because it's called the South China Sea. I don't know, that's a valid argument. But no, there is there's a possibility.
Almost like a land grab. And that's what I see in the German king at the time. Mm-hmm. He just wants land, and he wants to grab, and he thinks he's got this huge powerful nation, and he thinks they deserve more land, and they deserve more power, and they deserve more wealth and more riches.
Yeah.
So I mean,
You are,
anyone can tell me I'm wrong. I don't mind, but I feel like from the information we're being fed that's what China are doing. Especially, I mean, look at India at the moment. You know, China are openly saying we own Bhutan and we own the northeast corridor that India have owned is a bad word, isn't it? But the Indian government has had power over for the last, I don't know, probably since the East India Company left.
Yeah.
So they're trying to land grab, as we're being told.
No, they of course will be trying to land grab because they're forced to. I mean, if you run an empire, the minute you stop invading is the minute the empire collapses. Look at Britain. You like America now being this huge army and having all of this military technology and doing everything it does around the world. I'm not absolving them of guilt, but what I would say is if you get out of the moral maze and the moral debate and just look at economics, just be totally dispassionate and detached, they're forced into that. They've set themselves up for that. If I don't know what a good allegory would be, but like if I have a really powerful sports car and all I'm doing is driving to the Morrisons around the corner to pick up shopping with it, it's like disuse of the car, except in this analogy, it would cause the car to die. So that's a poor analogy. It will die if it stops. The America has to keep going as it is. It has to keep pushing. It needs enemies. It needs wars. It needs to keep pushing. So yeah, China has to keep pushing the frontiers in order to maintain what it is. Otherwise, it ceases to be what it is.
So you haven't got a lot of Chinese friends, but you've got a lot of friends from Hong Kong, don't you?
Yeah.
So what have you spoken to them about the whole South China? What's their take on it?
They hate China. The people from Hong Kong, like all of the Cantonese people that I know here, have extremely racist views towards China, like mainland Chinese people. If I'm through Facebook, I like a lot of pages that are Singaporean, Malaysian, and Hong Kong, just because of my friends. And every week they run stories about how disgusting and dirty and awful mainland Chinese people are. PRCs, they call them, the People's Republic of China. They are not well liked, and yeah, the Chinese government is not well liked. And there have been very violent riots in Hong Kong over the pressure that the Chinese government is applying to Hong Kong.
It's just, I think it's really scary because if you push it too far, there's only a certain point where people can't step back. Well, there's only a certain point, I think, when politicians don't think they can step back anymore.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. You kind of hit a point, don't you, where you hit the point of no return. You're now committed to doing something, even if you wake up the next day in a slightly better mood and you don't fancy going to war.
Yeah.
You kind of have to now.
Yeah.
You kind of told everybody you would, Mr. Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
So here we go, boys.
You're going to have to kind of do it now.
I actually am not as worried. To bring it back to like what spawned this was the situation with Trump and North Korea. I'm not as worried as everybody else seems to be about it. I don't think anybody can really afford to do anything.
I don't think a North Korea point, whatever's happening, will kick off a war. I think the South China Sea is more likely to kick off a war.
I think most of the analysts, I only know two in the Asian area, who's like, there's my mate who works for Russia Today, and he's always analysing what's going on with Asian politics. That's his main area of concern as well. What's going on in the South China Sea, and how will Malaysia, Vietnam, Cambodia, the Philippines, everybody else respond to what is seen as Chinese expansionism.
Yeah.
It's not great.
Well, there's another article I read which from The Economist, so I don't know how much truth is in it. But there's one island that they're building up now, that America are flying planes over constantly, and is growing. It's become a proper. Once it becomes a certain size, then they can claim so many miles off of that coast of that small island.
Right.
But once they've built this one island, they then have the territorial claim to another island that we don't have to build up. It exists.
Yeah.
I think that's near the Sudoku, or I can't remember what the islands off Japan are called, but it puts them at a point where they claim this island that Japan don't currently claim, but is very, very close to the islands off Japan.
Yeah.
It gets a little bit more scary, but the other point being that there's a shelf off this island as well, Whereas China, at this point, don't have a territorial claim to anywhere where they can launch deep sea submarines. But once this island is built, that they've got a big enough mileage to then claim this other island. When they claim that island, then they have a continental shelf where they can launch submarines from.
Yeah.
And this is what this article was getting at, saying, this is their main aim. We don't know if that's their main aim, to be fair, but that's scary if they're thinking that far ahead.
That's a bit more scary. That is a little bit more scary because everything kind of hangs in the balance there, and I think the way that everything has a knock-on effect in that region. So our relations with Japan, just Britain and just Japan, just our relations with Japan, or the UN relations with Japan, it has this whole, and it's all perceptual. It's all about perception and who's backing who, and do I dare cross this line? Well, no, I think the political is such that if I do that, then, and it's all gamble. Everything is done on gamble at the moment. But it's tense. It's tense. It's been tense for a while. I mean, the last time I was living in Asia was back in 2014, and it's all people were talking about over there.
Yeah, and if that does happen, do we in the West just let them get on with it because it's not in our back garden?
I don't think so, but I don't know what kind of a level of response we would really have to that.
Because a UN response would be if any outside nation attacks any nation inside the UN, the rest of the countries in the UN come to the aid of that country.
Yes, yeah. So there's contractual obligations there.
And the UN ceases to work if that's not upheld.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I'm not clued in enough. I'm not sure what the last thing I read about the UN and Trump with the UN wasn't particularly positive.
No.
But yes, obviously, if there's a contractual obligation there, then something will happen. I don't think China wants that. I don't think anybody with half a brain really wants to go up against America. America's riddled with problems. But it's still, there's no fucking doubt in anybody's mind, it's the biggest boy on the block.
Yeah.
And militarily, you don't want to be engaged in outright open warfare with the America. That's really, really silly.
Yeah.
But I don't know. China's obviously going to try and push it as hard as it can.
Yeah.
And yeah, that can spill over into all kinds of things. Which would not be great, but I'm not as worried that we're going to be drawn into some long drawn out war there. I'm more worried that, just like in Game of Thrones, yes, there's an option to use dragons, there's an option to send the 3 dragons in to melt a city and kill loads of people, but we shouldn't take that option because it's not the moral high ground. If there was a war fought and it was open, it would be short, and China would be devastated by it. Because you can't you can't just go, oh, we've got strength in numbers. That doesn't mean that much nowadays. Not really.
No, I mean, I suppose an open war would be a nuclear war, wouldn't it?
I would hope not. I would certainly hope not. It would be really a massive human tragedy if that were the case. But, and even the Japanese Prime Minister the other day was talking in terms of those implications. It was the anniversary of Hiroshima or Nagasaki, and he was saying, we do not want to see this again in our lifetime. You all heard me there? I said we don't want to see this, you crazy fucks, in our lifetime. But it might also be inevitable. What happens historically is the population grows to a peak that it has never hit before, and then once it's hit that peak, it drops hugely.
But we haven't had a Spanish flu.
Yeah, which is what Bill Gates is looking at. The fact that we probably will have the equivalent of a Spanish flu or the Black Death or the bubonic plague or something that knocks out a lot of people. The way the ecosystem works and the way the world works is massive catastrophe from some corner is on the horizon. Da, 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 da. Cheers, folks. See you next time. Yeah, no. Yeah, but it's inevitable. We know this. That's why we have oil in the ground, because millions and millions of dinosaurs were smashed to pieces by millions and millions of meteors for millions and millions of years. That's what happens on this planet. It's a savage thing. We happen to exist in the blinking of the planet's eyelid, where there hasn't been anything major. There hasn't been huge cold, huge heat, or a load of meteors knocking the fuck out of us. But that could change.
We're not self-regulating very well, are we, Bo?
There's different arguments to that. I was listening to a bit of Joe Rogan the other day, and there was a guy on there saying, well, anything that we do is natural. We can't be considered to be external to the earth. We're part of the earth. So do we need to self-regulate? If it's not natural for us to self-regulate, then that's the self-regulation. Our chaotic and self-destructive nature is the self-regulation.
Don't you think that's a really dumbed down, like, it's a really, like...
I don't find it convincing.
Fancy shooting some people and throwing some plastic in the sea.
It's a weed smoker's philosophical answer, and it's superficially smart, but it doesn't really stand up to much further analysis. And I don't find that a convincing reason to not take responsibility and to clean up our own back garden. I think it's as simple as that. You have a back garden. It's a finite space. Don't fucking fuck it up. Just look after the thing. Try and take care of what is going on in your own back garden and keep things as simple as that. And then at least if catastrophe does happen, we won't all be sat around going, oh, we should have done something else. We could have done something different, but we were too busy not giving a shit. But yeah, no, what I meant is more broadly along a long enough timeline, huge disaster, a mass death that brings the population back down. We're probably looking at a population cut of 80 to 90% is inevitable.
I mean, that would be quite scary.
Yeah. But, hopefully you'll be fucking dead. You won't have to worry about it. Your stupid kids will have to worry about it. My stupid kids will have to worry about it. I'm going to tell them that when they're 12. The world is going to end in fire and doom.
Daddy says so.
You're going to live through that. Daddy will be dead. Daddy's going to be in the long sleep by the time that happens. Sorry, kids.
We might have been able to download our brains by then, though.
It's already happened, Will. Do you not listen to Elon Musk? It's already happened.
We've already downloaded our brains.
That's his theory. That's why this is a virtual reality.
What we were talking about the other day.
We were talking about this the other day.
That DiCaprio film.
Where's DiCaprio? Oh, Inception.
Yeah.
The dream within the dream within the dream. That's just somebody who's a dreamer trying to tell themselves a story about their dreaming state.
But you were saying the girl in there, his wife?
Yeah, Leonardo Cobb's wife. Leonardo DiCaprio's character's wife, Mal.
But she's convinced the only way to get out of a dream is to kill herself?
Because he convinced her of that. Because he needed her to get out of a dream that they were both stuck in. So he convinced her. He put the idea inside of her head that the only escape is death. And then when she came back to real life, which we don't know is real life, we don't know what's real life in Inception, she's constantly killing herself. Or trying to kill herself.
Right. But if Elon Musk is saying that we've already downloaded our brains,
yeah,
the only way to be alive is to kill yourself.
No, he's not saying that. That Inception has nothing to do with
what
Elon Musk said. Jesus Christ, well. Elon Musk today said you may as well fucking kill yourselves because you're already dead. You're in a Matrix pod already. No, he's not saying that. He's saying that on the balance of probability, that it is highly likely that this is a virtual reality and that we're living inside of a supercomputer already.
Because it's a possibility.
Not because it's a possibility, on the balance of probability.
Right.
Now, I have got my head around this once before, but it did take about an hour.
It seems weak.
And I had to like draw big pictures inside of my brain, and it hurt my brain afterwards. So if you imagine there's a timeline that goes from left to right, and here we are on the left, and the right is the future. Where we are now is an explosion of artificial intelligence. So the artificial intelligence that is completely capable of creating and maintaining a total artificial reality may be on our doorsteps by 2030. What will we do with that? And what will the artificial intelligence do with us? When does our free choice disappear along that timeline? We're interacting with artificial intelligence already. We're already being guided in our thoughts and thinking by the use of Facebook, the use of Instagram, the use of social media. The algorithms are guiding what comes into our consciousness. So artificial intelligence is already guiding our consciousness. Where will that be in 15 years' time? When you can't distinguish between real reality and virtual reality? And what will the artificial intelligence decide to do with your consciousness? Now, that's 15 or 13 years' time. Fast forward it 100 years. The computers then develop the accelerated capacity to build their own computers. Artificial intelligence then creates better artificial intelligence that is chatting only to itself. So that's like in 100 years' time, artificial intelligence is at this, incredible level. Where do we fit in?
But why would artificial intelligence give us a history? Doesn't make any sense. We don't need to know.
We don't need to know what our history is.
Yeah.
I think that the theory was...
They would have invented the Romans, God, they've invented all of it.
I think the theory that I read that explained that was that we are running an infinite number of simulations of how reality can play out at the same time in this huge future supercomputer, and we are just one of those simulations. Why would the artificial intelligence want to do that? To understand the nature of reality itself. Effectively, artificial intelligence at that point in the supercomputer future is indistinguishable from a god. And it's just dreaming all of us for the sake of experiencing itself.
Buddhism.
Hinduism had that one first.
Did it?
Yeah,
okay.
Buddhism nicked that. Some people argue with it, but Buddha himself, Prince Gautama, was a Hindu.
All right, okay.
Some people claim he wasn't, but it's generally accepted that Buddha was a Hindu, and that Buddhism is kind of like Hinduism refined, Hinduism without the narrative, the backstory, Hinduism without the UFOs and the intergalactic battles, and aliens, which is what is in the Bhagavad Gita.
To be fair, I've not read anything about it, but it does sound quite interesting if you put it like that.
Oh yeah. Well, if you read it raw, it's bloody hard to take in, because it's poetic language in Sanskrit that's then translated. The translations that we will read now will have been from 1905, and it's pretty dull and hard to read. But yeah, if you penetrate the meaning of the stories, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Sounds very interesting. I like the idea of intergalactic warfare.
Yeah, man, people are flying around in the main heroes of the story. They fly around in these they're called chariots, but yeah, they're in the sky. They're having battles in the sky.
So then, are we saying as well that we are about to live out that film Children of Men?
I don't know. I'm not sure. If you'd asked me that a couple of years ago, I'd say yes. I was convinced that we would see concentration camps on British soil full of Muslims, just like Children of Men. And there was another film with Bruce Willis where Bruce Willis says, "Please don't use a broadsword, where a scalpel would be more appropriate." And he represents the army that goes in and declares martial law in, I think it's New York it's set in. It's a long time ago since I saw it. What's that film, Will?
I don't know.
It's about terrorist attacks in New York or some major American city, and they basically just lock the whole city down and they imprison all the Muslims, which is something that they did do with the Japanese Americans in World War II after Pearl Harbor. They set up concentration camps in California and shoved any Japanese American in there just on the basis of them being Japanese, so that they wouldn't commit terrorist acts.
Wow.
Y'all didn't know about that yet. But yes, it's true.
Did not know about that.
Yeah, concentration camps of passport carrying, ultra loyal, ultra nationalistic Americans because they were Japanese,
wow.
of Japanese heritage. It's sick, isn't it?
We are seeing mass immigration, aren't we? Or we're going to see more mass immigration. Yeah. Children of Men seems more likely that it's something akin to it's going to happen. But then again, I'd say that's down to global warming, because if you can't grow anything in the equator states in the world, you're going to have to go north or south, aren't they?
If it comes to that, then yes, they will flee the desert and try and come to the north or the more richer countries in the north and the southern hemisphere. Yeah.
If you're going to grow some stuff, you've got to be able to eat some stuff.
If you're going to grow some stuff, you've got to be able to eat some stuff. Yes, that's very true. If there's no food there, then everybody just dies.
Yeah.
That is one way of controlling the population. disease, and mass starvation. It's you're shaking your head, but this shit happens, man. That's the history of humanity is huge suffering and pain. It's only us that get like anxiety and depression and get overweight because
We can.
we've got the wealth to do it. We've got the time and the wealth to do it.
Just to think about stuff.
I'm not sure. Like, if we go and speak to some Bushmen in the Kalahari and we get like a translator there and you say to them, what's your word for anxiety? What's your word for depression? They might not really have that. They might be like, what do you mean? I don't have time for this. My entire family is starving. What are you talking about? Go away. And they just wander off and just go and find another 500 calories to be split between three of them. I think that we are suffering as a result of this civilization that we have. We're in a lot of pain.
We are.
Mental health is not good at the moment.
No.
But there's a lot of things to feel anxious about. There's a lot of things to feel scared of. But the whole point of this project, the strengthofmind.coach, which we've not mentioned on any of the podcasts yet,
no.
strengthofmind.coach, is to help people navigate that rocky terrain and to develop like a more stoic, stronger outlook to help them get through what are really quite strange times.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are really struggling. I mean, I think the next podcast we'd like to just focus on, people who are really struggling with a 9-to-5 week.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that's quite interesting. I think a lot of people just struggle with having to do something they don't necessarily want to do.
Yeah. Do you mean you?
I don't feel any. I don't
I
like
hate my job.
I don't like my job, but I don't find it a struggle.
Yeah.
But the thing I get annoyed about is that I have to go and do stuff. But that's just me being lazy.
I think for some people, the cracks are showing around the edges now. There was an idea before you would have ever been in work of a job for life, of feeding into a taxation system and a government and a society that was just, that had a point where you would be rewarded for your efforts at the end of the day. And all of that has just been smashed. Not just smashed, but ritually tortured right in front of your eyes, mutilated and then cast into a burning pit. All your dreams, all of them, right in front of you.
Well, I mean, I did read a book at university about slavery in the southern states of America, and they talk about slavery, but they basically slave owners realised that it was cheaper to actually pay people to work for them rather than owning slaves.
Yeah.
Because if you own slaves...
You pay for your own teeth. You pay for your own ear infection.
Your own house.
Your own house, your own
clothes.
dwellings,
your own food.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we have now. We should do a podcast on that.
Yeah.
On how our model of living that we have now is quite possibly based on the mental revolution from slavery to working class people.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, mate. All right. That's time. Thank you very much for listening, and we will speak to you soon.